Good evening, Year 1 and 2. My name's Miss Dawe. I teach Year 3 and some of you might know me from your French lessons as well, as I teach French across the school as well as being a teacher. Today, however, I'm here for a very exciting reason. I'm here to read you a bedtime story. I've chosen a particularly special one called Osbert and Lucy. You probably have a favourite storybook too. This one is special as my dad used to read it to my brother and I when we were younger. Whenever he said, which bedtime story would you like? We'd always choose Osbert and Lucy. And you can see on the cover, it's going to be about a dog and a little rabbit. Before we get started, I hope you're cosy, that you're wearing some big thick socks, you have your favourite teddy like I have, and you're ready to snuggle down and listen to a bedtime story. Osbert and Lucy by Ronald Ferns. Somewhere in a small town there was a certain house where Mr. and Mrs. Good lived with their dog Osbert. In the back garden there was a little hutch where lived a white rabbit named Lucy. And you can see their street here, Mr. and Mrs. Good in front of their house with their dog Osbert. Osbert and Lucy were good friends. Osbert Good was a very nice dog, except for one thing. He liked to listen at doorways. One day he overheard 3 words that made him very alarmed. Oh no! They were delicious, rabbit and dinner. Oh no, what do you think Osbert is worried about? This could only mean one thing. No, they couldn't. They mustn't eat his friend Lucy. You can see Osbert visiting Lucy in the back garden and Osbert being very naughty and listening to Mr. and Mrs. Good's conversation. Osbert hurried into the garden to tell Lucy what he had overheard. Lucy didn't like the idea of becoming dinner for Mr. and Mrs. Good, but Osbert had a plan. They would run away together. In the middle of the night, Osbert opened the door to Lucy's hutch and out she hopped. She put some lettuce leaves into a tiny bag and Osbert took with him a bone and an umbrella. You can see he looks very worried as he's running as fast as he can. And here they're little bags of food. Why do you think Osbert might have taken an umbrella? What might the weather be like? They set off together into the night. Although Osbert walked slowly, Lucy had to hop very quickly to keep up because she had very tiny legs. The rain fell in big drops, making large puddles on the pavement. Oh, what shall we do? Where shall we go? Wailed Lucy. Everything will be all right, as long as we stay together, said Osbert. He sounds like a good friend comforting her. And you can see them walking along the street together and all the big puddles. Soon they came to an empty house. There was a sign outside saying, "For sale." "Let's shelter here for a while," said Osbert. He shook the raindrops from his umbrella while Lucy held the bags of food. So going to go inside to get out of the rain. As Lucy leant against the door, it began to open. Cautiously, the 2 friends crept inside and bravely climbed the stairs. "No one will find us here," said Lucy, beginning to feel better. They were both tired and hungry. Lucy nibbled her lettuce leaves and Osbert gnawed his bone. Soon they were both fast asleep. You can see them here with their picnic and after eating, all tired and sleepy. I wonder why they cautiously climbed the stairs. Who else could be in the house? They woke up as the dawn sunshine shone through the dusty window. Osbert and Lucy peered out together. This is what they saw. There was a neat garden with flower beds. There was a vegetable patch. There were some fruit bushes. And beyond the gate, there was a leafy wood. I think Lucy's going to love this garden with all the vegetables. Do you think Osbert will like it? They raced downstairs. The back door was locked, but at the bottom, they found a cat flap. Lucy slipped through easily. Osbert found it rather difficult, but he squeezed and he huffed and he pushed and he puffed, and eventually he found himself outside. So some of you might have a cat flap if you have a cat. It's like a little opening so your cat can come in and out. And poor Osbert is stuck. "Oh, it's lovely," cried Lucy, looking around the garden. She was soon enjoying a fine breakfast of tender lettuce leaves and fresh carrots. Poor Osbert wandered around hoping he could find something to eat. If only he were a vegetarian too. What does it mean if you're a vegetarian? For example, Lucy is a vegetarian, but Osbert isn't. He can't find anything he likes. Then he noticed a packet near the wall. Inside were sandwiches, corned beef, cheese and jam. But he was so hungry and in such a hurry to eat that he dropped most of the slices of bread. You can see them all falling out here. He's being a bit careless. Birds flew down from the trees and snapped up the bread. Ants scurried from the cracks in the path and carried the jammy bits away to eat at home. Soon, everything was gone. Time passed. Lucy seemed to love life in the garden. She found plenty of carrots and lettuce leaves, but poor Osbert could find nothing to eat at all. He sat down in the corner of the garden and wished, "If only sausages, bones, lamb chops and biscuits grew on trees." But they didn't. You can see Lucy here lying quite contentedly in the garden, and poor Osbert wishing he could find these things. I like the look of the tree with the biscuits. Osbert thought about his comfortable home, his regular meals, and his basket. Then he thought about his favourite ball and his collection of squeaky toys. He became very sad, and great big tears rolled down his nose and face. "Rabbits can live in the wild," he said sadly, "but dogs need a home and a bone and a warm, dry basket." What do you think he's going to do next? Will he stay, or do you think he'll go home? He wandered off to find Lucy. She was holding hands with another rabbit. "This is Henry," she explained. "He came over from the wood where he lives. He has asked me to marry him, and I feel inclined to accept. But what will you do, Osbert?" Can he stay living in the wild? Or is he going to go home and leave Lucy? Will she be okay on her own? "Congratulations," said Osbert. "Oh, I do hope you'll be happy. Please don't worry about me. I'll go back home. After all, I don't think they'll eat me for dinner." So Lucy and Henry were married. And you can see the little rabbit wedding here with all the little rabbit bridesmaids. When Osbert reached home again, Mr. and Mrs. Good were very pleased to see him. "How clever of Osbert to find our lost umbrella," they said. "What a pity he couldn't find Lucy as well." I don't think they've had any idea that Osbert's been on an adventure. Later that same day, Osbert Good was listening at the door again. This time he heard the words, "Delicious, dinner, and now jelly." Delicious, dinner, and now jelly. Which word has changed? That's right, earlier it was rabbit and now it's jelly. What do you think Mrs. Good's made? Mrs. Good walked out from the kitchen carrying a large, wobbly, pink jelly rabbit. Osbert felt rather silly, so they hadn't meant to eat Lucy after all. Still, he was glad he hadn't taken any chances. And this is what they meant earlier, so they didn't need to run away after all. Now he could visit Lucy and Henry in the wood. They have a very large family with many children, a number of grandchildren and several great-grandchildren. They've got so many, they take up 2 pages. And here's Osbert carrying 3 of them. And he knows that although he needs a home and a bone and a dry basket, Lucy is much better off where she is. And the last page is of Osbert in his basket. He's all comfy at home whilst Lucy is out in the wild. Even though they're friends, they're better off living in these different places. I hope you've enjoyed the storybook that I've chosen, and I hope you have a good night's sleep. Bye for now. See you back at school soon.